We're finally here. Welcome, my dear friends, the Green Scorpion here, celebrating a momentous occasion. I've been making countdowns for some time now, and as I hope you know, I set up a Patreon account a few years ago with certain milestones, and today, I'm happy to announce that we recently passed our first threshold of $500. This may seem like a humble goal to some, but guys, I'm overjoyed. There are a lot of reasons I do this channel, but my first priority is always to have fun and share my passion for video games with anyone who will listen. I didn't quit my day job, and YouTube is a pretty bad place to be if you're just in it for the money. But with the help of some dedicated fans, I was able to finance my obsessive, long-winded critiques. And if you've donated even $1 to me, or if you've helped me by watching, sharing, and commenting on my videos, then from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And to symbolize that thanks, here's the list I promised, the big one. My top 50 favorite video games of all time. Now I'm gonna admit, video games are my life, or at least a large percentage of it. And as such, this was no small task. I made sure to consider everything. On my first go, I had 151 games listed, even with the 1 per franchise rule. Yeah, enough to fill a Pokedex. Tears were shed while narrowing it down, but I think I got it. And for the next 5 videos, you're gonna hear it. This should go without saying, but these aren't what I consider the best games of all time. These are just the games that matter to me the most. Some I grew up with and hold precious memories for me, and many are based on experiences I've shared with friends, family, even this online community. Sometimes I can't explain why one game is listed higher than another, it's just what my heart tells me. And the heart is a pretty fickle thing. Ask me this question next year and my list will more than likely be a little different. I've even listed a couple of games that I discovered while working on this very countdown, so for the sake of my own sanity, I set a hard cutoff date of December 2018. So that means any games that I haven't played before or were released after that date are too late to apply. So sorry Soul Calibur 6 and sorry Devil May Cry 5. But on that note, it's time to get this party started. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my top 50 favorite video games of all time. When organizing these countdowns, Comic Foil and I have a little game we play with the lowest spot. We like to call them the Gatekeeper. It's our way of visualizing where the bar is set for getting onto the list. Our original Gatekeeper was an imposing one, Mortal Kombat Trilogy for the Nintendo 64. But at the last minute, a much faster fighting game snuck past it. The Capcom crossovers are a good showcase of high-energy brawling. Tatsunoko, SNK, and best of all, Marvel. Since the series evolved out of the X-Men vs. Street Fighter crossover, each entry brought a lot to the table, but oddly enough, my favorite is the first Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Heroes. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is great, but the giant roster is incredibly unbalanced with only like 6 characters seeing competitive play. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 got good once they released the Ultimate version, but those matches tend to boil down to rocket tag. Whoever can graze the opponent once and start an infinite combo wins. Speaking of infinite... yeah, they really dropped the ball on that one. Decent enough gameplay, but the roster leaves a lot to be desired. Larger than Clash of Heroes, I'll grant you, but it's just not Marvel vs. Capcom without Wolverine. Get that crap out of here! And yeah, I'm talking more about the other games here, but that's just because there's not a ton to say about Marvel 1. I just really like it. What few characters you get are fun and balanced, the matches are fast and energetic, landing hyper combos is super satisfying, and something about the game's color palette, it's so 90s. There's actually an old game store near my house that still has the arcade machine, and anytime I stop by, you know I'm gonna be dropping some quarters on this one. It was a simpler time, but it was a time with Cyclops and Zangief, so it was a better time. It might surprise you to learn that there aren't any NES games in my top 50. A few made it close, and I certainly respect them for establishing what makes a game good, but I didn't have enough 8-bit in my childhood to hold much nostalgia, and when I go back to the best the console has to offer, well, there's some great games in here, but it's hard to grapple with the limitations of the late 80s. If only a game could capture the spirit of these classics without the shortcomings of the era. Looks like Yacht Games had the same idea. Tons of indie games go retro, but Shovel Knight just gets it. A quirky premise with just enough heart that we take it seriously, a bustling town like Zelda 2 without the frame drops, an interesting gallery of bosses a la Mega Man but with even more diversity, and a moveset that would make Uncle Scrooge proud. Shovel Knight looks 8-bit, but don't let that fool you. It emulates the feel of vintage platformers with a color and presentation they could never have managed. Not to mention that level design. These guys know what they're doing. Taking the best examples that the NES had to offer and giving them some serious refinement and polish. They don't just love Castlevania and Mega Man, they understand them, preserving their good points while fixing the bad. That's not even the complete package though. Sure, there's the different armors that can drastically influence your playstyle, and the cheat codes. Oh, so many cheat codes! But then there's the DLC that lets you play as Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, and King Knight might be out by the time this video drops. This isn't like Mega Man 9, where you just play through the game with slightly different properties either. These are each entirely new adventures with different stories and playstyles. Sure, it's the same locations, but it's amazing how much the game changes when you trade the shovel in for Plague Knight's bombs. And Spectre's campaign is straight up Ninja Gaiden, except fair. Yacht Games could probably milk this series forever if they wanted, but they've announced that after King Knight's expansion, they'll probably move on to something else, and I really respect that. This isn't the last indie game you'll see on this list, but for how well it plays, it'll give most AAA developers a run for their money. Funny thing about indie games is that they kind of take turns sitting in the spotlight, stealing attention from all other indie titles. A long time ago it was Cave Story, and 2014 it was Shovel Knight, and a year later everyone was raving about Undertale. Let's check the comment section. Yep, there it is. Obligatory comment that Undertale is overrated. Haters gonna hate. Listen, I know the hype around this game got a little out of control, and you've probably met a few really obnoxious Under fans. We're a passionate bunch. I'm not calling it my favorite game of all time, obviously, but this game really moved me. Much like Earthbound, which Undertale wants to be so much, Undertale sells itself as more of an experience than a game. As an RPG, it's bare bones, and more than a few times fun will be snatched away from you to make a point. It's hard to give it a solid score because so much of it depends on whether or not the deceivingly complex story resonates with you. For a lot of people, it did, so to them this game is a masterpiece, and those feelings are real. You weren't tricked into thinking this game was good. This game really is good. Though, if someone says they don't like it, maybe don't call them an idiot in the public forum. Let's just agree to like what we like, okay? Okay. Okay! Okay. Okay! Okay. So speaking as someone who loves this game, I love the offbeat humor. I love how some decisions can make a huge difference in the story. I love how other decisions affect you in smaller, more surprising ways. Toby Fox puts all of these little quirks into the programming. I'm still learning about different tricks and dialogue trees. I love how limited everything seems at first with the 8-bit art style, MIDI chiptunes, and clean, sterile battle mechanics, just so the game can pull off the facade in big boss fights and completely change what you thought were rules. And that music, one of my favorite soundtracks of all time for how well it reuses motifs of different characters and areas. Even if the game is aggravating in places, particularly Hotland and the entire Genocide run, I really respect Fox's decision to make them this way. Everything about the game feels purposeful. I slowly realized that I've had more fun thinking and talking about Undertale than actually playing it. But that's what makes it such a great game to share. Play it blind if you can, and then treat stories of how your run went. Did you kill anyone accidentally? How did the final boss make you feel? Sure, there are other games like Undertale, and maybe its time in the spotlight stole attention from other worthy indie games, but I'm really happy it's found so many people to love it. And let's face it, you're not really popular unless someone absolutely hates you. so I'd say Undertale is doing just fine. Did I come off a little strong back there? If you're one of those people who just can't enjoy Undertale because of all the excessive fandom around it, hey, I totally get where you're coming from. That's how I was at first with the Danganronpa series. It started with viewers telling me to play it, and that I can deal with. It's well known that I love the Ace Attorney games, and Danganronpa is like Ace Attorney turned up to 11. I knew it was something I'd probably enjoy. But then my friends all got into it, and were demanding I tried it, and when people are forcing me to play something, it's easy for me to get turned off by the whole thing. I'm a free gamer, I'll play it when I want to play it. And once I did, yeah, I see where everyone was coming from. Just calm down, alright? While it can't take the place in my heart reserved for Phoenix Wright, Danganronpa is a masterfully written mystery series, full of twists, turns, great humor, and gut-wrenching despair. It's also one of the hardest series to edit segments for because everything about it is a spoiler, and it's one of the top games that should not be spoiled. The premise is a great setup to gather a group of outlandish high schoolers and solve some morbid crimes. But not only does each case explore the characters and set you to find the murderer, it's also slowly trickling in details of the big mystery to the game's overall plot. The character portraits are really expressive, and the graphics take this fairly simple visual novel style and sends it on a roller coaster. There's just so much hype to these cases. As for which game I like the most, I have to go with Danganronpa 2. The first game for me is the best as a standalone mystery story, but 2 builds on it with a deeper plot and more refined mechanics. The third game is also really great, though maybe things got a little bit too ridiculous for me at times. And this is a series where your master of ceremonies is a vulgar animatronic teddy bear mascot that wants to kill people. 2 also has my favorite cast. Some of my favorites being Gundam, a dark magic enthusiast who seems to be from the wrong game, and Fuyuhiko, voted most likely to have already murdered someone. If you've played it, you already know it's good. If you haven't, give it a look. Unless you're faint of heart. Oh, and play the games in order. You'll be confused either way, but God help you if you start with the second game. Unless you count the Marvel side of Marvel vs. Capcom, I only have one licensed game on here. Dragon Ball FighterZ. It doesn't come up a lot, but I'm a huge DBZ fan. The series just begs to be gamified, and FighterZ is probably the best attempt at that, though you could make a pretty good argument for Budokai 3. Anime make for natural fighting game adaptations. All they need to do is stay true to the spirit of the TV show. But instead, they went the extra mile and made it one of the best fighting games to come out in years. All of your favorite characters are here: Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Goku, Trunks, Krillin, Goku, Frieza, Buu, and of course, Goku. They even got Yamcha in there, and he's hilariously good. That might be the least faithful thing about this game. Also, give the graphic designers of this game some medals. Everyone in the roster looks like their anime counterparts, and the action looks smooth, clean, and colorful. Not to mention freaking insane. Not only is every fighter extremely fast, you're constantly setting off giant blasts and lasers that fill the whole screen. You're never safe in one place for more than a second, just like DBZ. No, scratch that. It's just how we remember DBZ, except real DBZ had these 10-minute charge-ups and tons of filler. Every match in FighterZ stacks up to the best the show has to offer, and the fan service is real. Character interactions are great, from Vegeta ever reluctant to work with anyone, Yamcha taking revenge when he defeats Nappa, and pretty much anything with Ginyu. You can tell the developers had a lot of love for the old days of American dubbed anime. I even like the inclusions from Dragon Ball Super. Yamcha versus Jiren? Yeah, this seems fair. Screw the power levels, I'm having fun. Time to get angry! But not the bad kind of angry. I love all these games. The kind of angry that makes really spectacular outro sequences. Yeah, I went a little overboard at the end of Berserkers, but a lot of folks seem to really appreciate the theatricality. That's just the kind of mood Asuras Wrath puts you in. FighterZ may be the best DBZ game out there, but Asuras Wrath taps into some primal source of what makes good anime so freaking hype. Over-the-top action, ludicrous scope, and show-stopping boss battles. All 3 are here in full force. It really gets the blood pumping. Asuras struggled to rescue his little girl, his rocky relationship with his godly brethren. The story's not gonna win a Pulitzer, but it's got enough adrenaline to get me on board with Asuras Rage, and it's just so much fun. Asuras Wrath is also my go-to example for how to do QuickTime events right. Too many games get bogged down by unfair, poorly implemented QTEs, but Asura's combat is built for these segments, placing them where you'd expect a big power-up moment to take place, and displays the inputs in a way that further simulates the mad energy of the battles. Most games spend 8 hours trying to build up to what Asura accomplishes in the first 10 minutes. Great for blowing off steam and blowing up Hindu gods. Man, Capcom, I can't believe you let these guys get away! It's not just QuickTime events that get a bad rap. I also think we get a little too leery on motion controls. Probably because we've seen them crowbarred into a lot of places that they just don't belong. Like, I was really excited for the first Red Steel, but the technology just wasn't there yet. It ended up being a bland but serviceable first-person shooter with some god-awful sword segments. Then, with the power of Wii Motion Plus, Ubisoft gave it another go with Red Steel 2. And good on them for going above and beyond. Out with the dime a dozen Yakuza setting, in with this unique Cowboy Japan love child world. The cel-shading graphics and the acoustic guitar-fueled soundtrack give this game a lot of personality. And not only do the sword controls work, they're super versatile. The katana is your main weapon this time around, firearms being more of a secondary attack option. And you learn more and more crazy maneuvers throughout the adventure, most of which have a plethora of combo options. Maybe you'll hit a snag with the gesture-based attacks every once in a while, and it's a tough game to play sitting down. But I'm an active guy, and I'll take any excuse to pretend I'm Samurai Jack. Motion controls have only gotten better since then, so Ubisoft, think you maybe want to take a crack at Red Steel 3? You know, if you can stop remaking the same sandbox game for a second. It probably wouldn't sell that well, but I'll play it. I usually favor the boxing-themed characters in fighting games, so a fighting game with all boxers is sure to... Oh, it's not a fighting game. Yeah, don't let the gloves fool you. Punch-Out is all rhythm and puzzle solving, and I love it to death. Mad respect to the Mike Tyson NES classic, but there's never been a better comeback than Little Mac's bout on the Wii. Though there is a lot of love for the original in this game. Sound effects, attack patterns, Doc Lewis's shameless Nintendo plugs.
Join the Nintendo fun. I mean Club Nintendo today, Mac.
But Von Kaiser and Bald Bull have never looked so good. Sure, the roster of opponents might seem light, but there's so much detail put into each bout, and these brutes are so expressive. Look at their faces right before you land a star punch. They know they're in for some pain. Mac's looking pretty good too. I love how he's more battered at the end depending on how well you played. And when you get him off the ropes and try one more time, that's hype as hell.
Oh, damn, dude. Oh, am I done? Oh no, dude. Ah! I'm doing Hulkamania!
Plus, you're actually getting twice the battles. Every baddie has a normal match and a super hard title defense match with new strategies and conditions. Even Glass Joe gets a little tough. You'll see that game over screen a lot, but you'll feel like Rocky when you finally get the timing down and see Sandman hit the mat. Pros will dig the NES-style button controls, but me, I grab the nunchuck and play this with full motion. Like I said, I'm an active gamer. Give it a try sometime, it's a rush. I can see why Nintendo hasn't come back to this one yet, it must have taken forever to make. But as long as I replay this baby, I'm happy. Never stop chasing your dreams, Mac. And never stop chasing that bike.
Good job, son. Good job.
Time for another fighting game, and I just checked. Nearly a fifth of my top 50 fits the category. Guess I shouldn't be surprised. Now, I usually like to keep my fighting down to 2 dimensions, but in my opinion, only 2 franchises ever really brought the genre gracefully into the Z-axis. Soul Calibur for weapon-based action, and for good old fisticuffs, Tekken. The series keeps getting better and better, with Tekken 7 continuing the trend with its over-the-top yet somehow down-to-earth fighting system. Great characters full of drama, a story mode that's actually really good, take notes Capcom, this is how it's done, and mechanics that just, so good! I tend to be more of an aggressive player, but I really appreciate Tekken's gameplay for rewarding good risks and punishing bad ones. There are combos to be had, but they're more careful and methodical, and you won't even see them in every round. It's perfectly acceptable to spend half the fight sneaking in quick jabs. With only 60 seconds on the clock, you don't have a lot of time to mess around. But if you get greedy, you might set up your opponent for some big hits. Health bars are short, and even if you get a bad start, victory is always just a few well-placed kicks away. Do not give up. I'm not the best when it comes to Tekken, but it's one of my favorites for watching pro matches. Do yourself a favor and look up the Rev Major 2017 finals between JDCR and Knee. This fight is crazy, down to the absolute wire, and only a game like Tekken 7 could facilitate a match this intense.
Oh, what's he gonna do? No time! Oh my God!
Here's a 25 years of tight juggles and buff old men.
Oh, good block! There's no time left! Oh my God!
I'm surprised no more heroes didn't make it on here. Neither of them. But when I weigh the good and the bad, there's a bit too many Jasper Bats and Million Gunmen for my taste. On the other hand, Mad World, the other once Wii exclusive quirky gorefest, there's no part that really brings the experience below average. Except maybe the druids. No clue how they made werewolves so uncool. Way more on the positive end though. The Sin City art style looks awesome while hiding the Wii's graphical limitations. Racking up points while racking up enemies never gets old. And Jack Kamen is a card-carrying badass. Mad World progresses through themed areas, from a racially insensitive Asian theme park to a haunted house zone, and even a space-age set of levels, and each comes with interesting bosses that stand up to the likes of Travis Touchdown's opponents, while fitting in with these strange themes. An imposing Yokozuna, a well-endowed vampire, these Jedi ripoffs, and how can you forget Von Twirlin Killer? It all builds up to a satisfyingly stupid showdown with the Black Baron, who will pimp slap you into a new zip code if you're not careful. But of course, the real stars of the show are the original Wiz and Boomstick, Howard and Kreese. Announcers extraordinaire, it's their solemn mission to take the piss out of every second of gameplay.
You know what I don't get? I don't get why they call him Little Eddie when he's so fucking big.
I think it's supposed to be ironic.
What?
You know, the use of words to express something other than, and especially the opposite of, the literal meaning. Usually a humorous or sardonic literary style or form.
You got beat up in school a lot, didn't you?
It's a guilty pleasure to be sure, with immature humor out the wazoo. But that's kind of the point, right? You're trapped in an ultra-violent game show being produced for the lowest common denominator. You're supposed to be cynical of it, even if you're secretly enjoying all of the lowbrow jokes from the peanut gallery.
Okay, this round.
He didn't break any of my records.
I don't think he was going for the most times shitting your pants record.
A record is a record. I got a trophy and everything.
And the rumors about the illegal brand?
Lies! All lies!
Make sure your mom's not around to hear it, and have a great time.
Yeah. This is the kind of treat only the Bishop of Blood and Carnage, the Black Baron, stops him. To light up the night, all you got to do is toss a motherfucker into a tube. Then it's only a matter of time before that ass gets tapped and kabloom! Shit be flying. You think it's the 4th of July up in this motherfucker. God damn. Hey, come on, baby. No, you know I love you. Whoa. Nah, hell no! Here goes my code.